The colossal and wanton destruction, pillaging, looting and desecration of Hindu temples in India during the Arabian Islamic conquests had occurred from the beginning of the Muhammadan onslaughts until the end of the Mughal Empire throughout the Indian subcontinent. An inscription at Quwwat al-Islam Mosque in Delhi states, "This Jami' Masjid, built in the year 587 Hijri by the glorious Qutb al-Dawla wad-Din Amir al-Umara Aybeg, the materials of 27 idol temples, on each of which 2 million Delhiwal's coins had been spent, were used in the construction of this mosque." The Persian al-Biruni, circa 973 AD, in his Indica, writes about the famous temple of Multan in India. A famous idol of theirs was that of Multan, dedicated to the sun. When Muhammad ibn al-Qasim ibn al-Munabbih conquered Multan, he inquired how the town had become so very flourishing and so many treasures had there been accumulated. And then he found out that this idol was the cause, for there came pilgrims from all sides to visit it. Therefore, he thought it best to have the idol where it was. But he hung a piece of cow's flesh on its neck by way of mockery. On the same place, a mosque was built. An inscription of 1462 AD at Jami' Masjid at Malan, district of Gujarat, states, "The Jami' Masjid was built by Khan-e-Azam Ulu Khan, who suppressed the wretched infidels. He eradicated the idolatrous houses and mine of infidelity, along with the idols with the edge of the sword, and made ready this edifice. He made its walls and doors out of the idols. The back of every stone became the place for prostration of the believers." The Mughal Emperor Jahangir wrote in his Tujuki Jahangiri, "I am here led to relate that at the city of Banaras a temple had been erected by Raja Mon Singh. I made it my plea for throwing down the temple which was the scene of this imposture, and on the spot, with the very same materials, I erected the great mosque, because the very name of Islam was proscribed at Banaras, and with Allah's blessing it is my design, if I live, to fill it full with the true believers." The conversion of non-Islamic places of worship into mosques has abated in modern times, as no major territorial acquisitions have been made by Islam in recent times. However, some of the Greek Orthodox churches in Turkey that were left behind by expelled Greeks in 1923 were converted into mosques. In our current times, we have watched with amazement how the peace-loving and tolerant sects of Muhammadan Islam are more than willing and able to destroy and slaughter the mosques and adherents of the others in the names of Allah and Islam. Please also remember, when the faithful Muhammadan Muslim Taliban of Afghanistan took such loving care of the Bamiyan statues of the Buddha, nothing can ever change in fundamentalist Muhammadan Islam, whether it is the passage of 1400 years or 14 million years. Nothing can unchain them from being mired in the time warp of Muhammad's 7th century Arabia. Ladies and gentlemen, we should neither be surprised nor outraged at what the Muhammadans are trying to achieve, which is their publicly declared policy of world dominance. Hitler, in his Mein Kampf, also made his intentions crystal clear, but our leaders did not take him seriously until it was too late. This error cost the lives of 50 million people. Our current spineless, mindless, ignorant and criminally negligent political, media, academic and religious leaders are repeating history by not paying heed to and or learning about the message of the Quran and its followers. They are exhibiting a degree of denial of facts and reality through their dysfunctional and one-sided political correctness that are bringing demographic, social, political and economic ruin to our democracies. These are the four horsemen of the apocalypse, the harbingers of national destruction. Our anger and disgust should be addressed at them and not at the Muhammadans, who, as believers, have absolutely no choice but to follow and abide by Muhammad's Quran and Sunnah, no matter how hate-mongering, warmongering, racist and satanic they are. Let us now ponder the following facts and realities. It was the Arab hordes that invaded, slaughtered, occupied, plundered and subjugated the peoples of at least 6 civilizations on 3 continents. It was the Arab imperialists who discriminated against, humiliated, honorously taxed and destroyed the traditions and civilizations of these peoples. It was the Arab occupiers who over the following centuries obliterated the glorious histories, religious beliefs and cultures of these nations and replaced them with their own sterile, unimaginative and pagan-based beliefs, traditions and fetishes. We now must address the myths of Islam's tolerance and civilization. Since Muhammadan Islam is based upon the twin pillars of Muhammad's Quran and his Sunnah, there rarely was and can never be any tolerance towards any or all unbelievers and disbelievers. We have shown this fact in almost 150 chapters of ours, based entirely upon the very Arabic verses of the Quran and Hadith, our mother tongue. The grand myth of the creative, tolerant Andalus Spain should also be exposed. It is true that there were among the leaders of the Mohammedans some who were so enlightened and secular that they allowed Christians, Jews and Zoroastrians to participate freely with the Mohammedans in the administration and intellectual circles of the state, as happened during the 700 years of occupation in Andalusia, Spain. Granted, at rare times, temporarily, it manifested some positive qualities in comparison to the Europe of the Dark Ages and to other parts of the Dar al-Islam then. But objectively, it was never the paradise which is it's often nowadays painted by ignorant or misguided apologists for jihad and Islam. Invariably, it was a society where dimitude, the enslavement, subjugation and the humiliation of the conquered peoples was rigidly enforced in their own native lands. The fact that a tiny handful of Jews and Christians could occasionally, exceptionally and aberrantly rise out of their endemic wretchedness made it slightly better than anything else around at that period. But it was hardly the good and just place that it's idolized today. The famous Italian journalist and author Oriana Fallaci's La Forza della Ragione details just how fully many in the Vatican and individual bishops and priests have collaborated in making Italy and other parts of Europe welcoming for Mohammedans, even handing over churches for use by them as living quarters. Her long, detailed and alarming indictment is both overwhelming and depressing. It goes far beyond the desire to slavishly placate Muslims so that they would not harm Christians in the Middle East. It has actually become a vehicle for those politically correct priests who detest their own civilization and exhibit a diseased sympathy for those who would not, for 1 minute, were Mohammedans to rule, to tolerate them or their own believers. In Cordoba, Spain, for example, the idea that the Christians are being asked by the aggressor Muslims for a gesture of reconciliation just after the Madrid bombing should fill one with fury and disgust at the total and obscene degree of hypocrisy and mendacity exhibited by the Muslims. What reconciliation are the Muslims expecting? It was they who invaded Europe in the first place. Where is their apology for this? When will they be asked to renounce their colonialism? Like a broken record, they bemoan the Crusades but ignore their own jihadi transgressions that preceded the Crusades by 400 years. The Arabs could not and did not contribute anything of value to the conquered civilizations, since they had none to give. They were, and still are, a totally parasitic imperialist power, unlike those of the Persians, Greeks, Romans, or the modern Western ones. Almost every single intellectual, philosophical, scientific, artistic, and theological contribution, as we have shown, were actually produced by the converts to Islam from among the conquered peoples, the Mawali. There was never an Islamic civilization, but most assuredly a Mawali civilization, because fundamentalist Muhammadan Islam cannot possibly survive under the light of freedoms. Freedoms of thought, belief, speech, or politics. It can only exist under the darkness of ignorance, terror, stupidity, hate, and unhappiness. As for any expectation of reciprocity from the ever-complaining Muslims, such as the return of churches, synagogues, or temples from their clutches, don't hold your breath. They publicly, unambiguously, and repeatedly declare that they will not be satisfied until all the non-Muslim holy places have been destroyed, converted to mosques, museums, or placed under Muslim protection, and all living creatures are subjected to their will. As we have repeatedly demonstrated, for Muhammadan Islam, the believers are people and the unbelievers are not. They are infidels, kuffar, beings fit only for hell and lower than dogs, the same dogs that are hated by Muhammad and his followers.